10 days before Thanksgiving, my daughter called and said 5 words that changed everything. "Mom, don't come home. Tyler's upset." I stood there holding a plane ticket I'd just bought, and I had no idea that 4 years later, I'd be standing at my 65th birthday party watching that same daughter scream, "That money is mine," in front of 40 witnesses. This is the story of how I lost a daughter and found myself. Hi friends, so glad you're here. Before we get started, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment below where you're from. I'd love to know. Oh, and a quick disclaimer, some names, places, and details in this story have been changed or created for dramatic effect. But trust me, the core truth, that's very real. I was at Target standing in the checkout line with a cart full of Thanksgiving supplies, marshmallows for sweet potato casserole, aluminum pans, a new sweater because Jessica had mentioned Tyler's mother always dressed elegantly for holidays. My phone rang. Jessica's name lit up. "Hi, honey," I said, stepping out of line. "I'm just grabbing things for next week. Do you still want me to make—" "Mom, we need to talk." Her voice was tight, professional. "It's about Thanksgiving." My stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" "Tyler's upset." "Upset about what?" "About you coming." She said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. "He thinks it's better if you don't come this year." I stood there holding marshmallows while someone's kid screamed for candy 3 aisles over. "What do you mean? Tyler's family is coming. His parents, his brother, his sister-in-law. And with the promotion he's going for this, Thanksgiving is really important, image-wise." "Image-wise?" I repeated. "Yes. Tyler's upset because when he told his mother you were coming, she asked what you did. And when he said retired elementary school teacher," she trailed off. I understood. His mother didn't think that was impressive enough. "It's not about impressive," Jessica said defensively. "It's just that his family are all in finance. His father founded the firm. His mother sits on charity boards. They summer in Cape Cod, and I taught 3rd grade for 30 years. Tyler thinks it'll be awkward. You wouldn't understand their conversations. Markets, portfolios, ski resorts in Switzerland. What would you even talk about?" I looked at my cart. Cheap pans, store-brand marshmallows, the $29 sweater. "So Tyler's upset that I'm not rich enough for Thanksgiving." "Don't twist this," she snapped. "Tyler's trying to make partner. Everything has to be perfect. The house, the wife, the family. Do you understand the pressure he's under? And I'm the imperfect part." Silence, then softer. "It's just easier this way, Mom. One Thanksgiving. We'll do Christmas. I already bought the plane ticket, $347, non-refundable. Then get a credit or—" She paused. "Look, that's not really my problem. Tyler's upset and I need to support my husband. Not really my problem. $347, half my monthly grocery budget. What about Lily? I haven't seen her since August. Lily's 3. She won't even notice. My granddaughter wouldn't notice I was missing. So when will I see you? We'll figure something out. Maybe Christmas. Tyler's family might want us in Aspen." Someone spoke in the background. "Mom, I have to go. Tyler needs me." The line went dead. I stood there while shoppers moved around me. A woman bumped my cart, apologized, kept walking. I looked at the marshmallows, the pans, the sweater that would never be elegant enough. I pushed my cart to customer service and returned everything. The teenager just scanned items and handed me $43.62. I drove home in my 10-year-old Honda and sat at the kitchen table staring at the plane ticket. Gate C14, departure, November 21st, 6:45 a.m. $347 saved by skipping movies and eating simple dinners for 3 months. All for a Thanksgiving I was no longer invited to because Tyler was upset that I wasn't impressive enough. I didn't cry, not yet. I just sat there as November light faded through my yellow curtains, thinking about 61 years of making myself smaller for people who would never think I was enough. Outside, the Johnsons laughed unloading groceries. The Martins raked leaves while their kids jumped in piles. Everyone had somewhere to belong. I didn't. And sitting there alone holding that useless ticket, I had no idea this was just the beginning. But that afternoon I just felt small, unwanted, and completely alone. 15 years ago, I was 50 years old, standing in Superintendent Morrison's office at Lincoln Elementary, looking at the biggest opportunity of my career, the principal position. After 25 years of teaching third grade, they wanted me to lead the school. "You'd be perfect for this, Claire," Dr. Morrison said, sliding the job description across his desk. "The teachers respect you, the parents trust you. The salary increase would be substantial, almost $15,000 more a year." $15,000. I stared at that number, thinking about what it could mean. A newer car, maybe a vacation, something more than a weekend at a state park. Finally saving for retirement instead of living paycheck to paycheck. "I need an answer by Friday," he said. I walked out feeling 10 feet tall. Finally, someone was seeing my worth. My phone rang before I reached my car. Jessica. "Mom." Her voice was thick with tears. "I can't do this anymore." My hand froze on the car door. "Honey, what's wrong?" "It's too much. Professor Hendricks gave us a 15-page paper due Monday. I have 2 midterms. My roommate is awful, and She dissolved into sobs. I got in the car, phone pressed to my ear keys, dangling, forgotten. "Tell me what you need. I need you. I need to know you're there, that if things get too hard, I can come home. But you're always at school late, and I can never reach you, and I feel so alone." Something twisted in my chest. 21 years old, and she still needed her mother. "I'm here," I said softly. "I'm always here." Promise you won't get so busy with work that you forget about me." The principal job flashed through my mind. Longer hours, evening school board meetings, weekend events. Jessica was right, I'd be less available. "I promise," I heard myself say. Friday came. I walked back into Dr. Morrison's office and declined the position. I told him I needed to focus on my family. He looked disappointed but understanding. They gave the job to someone else, someone whose daughter didn't need them available at a moment's notice. I told myself it was the right choice, that being a good mother meant sacrifice. What I didn't tell myself was that this was just the beginning. Over the next few years, Jessica's lifestyle expanded while mine contracted. She wanted to join a sorority. I picked up tutoring gigs on weekends. She needed a car for junior year. I started cleaning houses on Saturday mornings. She wanted to study abroad senior year. I took a third job at a retail store folding clothes for minimum wage. I'd leave my teaching job at 3:30 drive across town to tutor until 6, then head to the store for evening shift. Saturdays, I cleaned houses. Sundays, I graded papers and meal prepped simple dinners. Pasta, soup, nothing fancy, nothing expensive. When Jessica came home for visits, she'd wrinkle her nose at my canned soup and ask why I didn't cook real food anymore. I didn't tell her it was because her sorority dues cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She never asked about my life, my dreams, whether I was happy, and I never told her. Good mothers don't burden their children. I'd convinced myself that love meant erasure, that being a good mother meant making myself smaller so my daughter could grow bigger. Every sacrifice felt noble, necessary, the right thing to do. I didn't realize I was teaching her a lesson, that my needs didn't matter, that I existed to serve her, that I could be set aside whenever something better came along. Every sacrifice, I told myself, it was love. I didn't know I was teaching her I was disposable. 3 years before that phone call, everything changed. David got sick. It started with back pain he brushed off. 58 is too young to fall apart, he'd joke. But the pain didn't stop. Then came weight loss, yellowing skin, the appointment that led to a specialist, then an oncologist whose gentle eyes told me everything before his words did. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. "How long?" I asked. 6 months, maybe 8 with treatment. David took my hand, his palm cold. "We'll fight it," he said. Fighting cancer isn't dramatic. It's getting your husband to the bathroom at 3 in the morning when medication makes him sick. Learning to flush IV lines and manage pain pumps. Watching the man who fixed everything struggle to open a water bottle. I took leave from teaching. We lived on David's insurance and our savings. I spent days in his hospital room, then at home with the rented hospital bed in our living room because he couldn't manage stairs. Jessica was 29, living with Tyler, pregnant with Lily. I called her the day of diagnosis. "Oh my God, Mom, that's awful." Her voice cracked. "I'll visit this weekend." She didn't. Work emergency. She texted Friday. Tyler needs help with a client presentation. Next week, I promise. Next week became next month. 6 weeks later, she finally came for 2 hours on Sunday. She sat on David's bed, phone in hand, checking messages while he tried to tell her about his book. That sounds nice, Dad, she said, not looking up. Mom, do you have crackers? The baby's making me nauseous. I made her crackers. I always made her crackers. She left before dinner. David watched her go from the window, his thin frame barely filling the chair. She's busy, I said. The pregnancy, the new house. I know. His voice was quiet. I just thought when you're dying, people make time. But Jessica didn't. Months crawled by, each stealing more of David. His laugh, his strength, his hope. I held his hand through treatments. Read to him when he was too weak to hold books. Learned to see the man I loved in the body failing him. Jessica visited once more in 6 months. Once. Tyler's company had a conference in our city and she figured she'd stop by. She stayed an hour. Lily, newborn, slept in her car seat. David asked to hold his granddaughter. I don't want to wake the baby, Jessica said. Maybe next time. There wouldn't be a next time. David knew it. I knew it. After she left, David was quiet. Finally, I should have taught her differently. Taught her what? That people aren't dispensable. He looked at me with eyes holding 33 years of marriage. I watched you make yourself small for her, Claire. I should have stopped it. Should have taught her that love isn't something you take when convenient and ignore when not. She's just scared. Seeing you like this. No. He shook his head slowly. She's just busy. There's a difference. He was right. Scared people show up anyway. Busy people find excuses. In his final weeks, David stopped asking when Jessica would visit. He stopped mentioning her name. That silence hurt more than anything, more than the illness taking him, more than facing life alone. It was the silence of a father who'd finally accepted his daughter, had already said goodbye. David passed away on a Tuesday morning in March, 2 years before Jessica's phone call. I was holding his hand when he took his final breath. The hospice nurse said it would be soon. His breathing had changed, shallow and distant, like he was already somewhere else. But nothing prepares you for the moment someone you love simply stops being there. I'm here, I whispered. I love you. And then he was gone. 33 years of marriage over. The funeral was Friday. I'd called Jessica Tuesday afternoon. I'll be there, Mom, she'd said, crying. Of course. The service started at 10. By 10:15, Jessica still hadn't arrived. I sat in the front pew, surrounded by David's colleagues, former students, neighbors. The seat next to me stayed empty. She walked in at 10:40, Tyler behind her, both wearing sunglasses indoors. They slid into the back row. After the service, she hugged me briefly. Sorry, we're late. Traffic. We have to leave soon. Tyler has a meeting at 3. A meeting. The day we buried her father. They left before the reception. 2 days later, the lawyer read David's will. Life insurance, $400,000. Retirement accounts, $300,000. The house paid off $350,000. Over $1 million. David had worked 2 jobs for years to build that security for me. The lawyer slid an envelope across the desk. He asked me to give you this privately. I opened it alone in my car. My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, I'm gone. We had a good run, didn't we? 33 years of you and me. You gave Jessica everything. Your dreams, your money, your time, yourself. She took it all without ever saying thank you. This money is for you, not for her education, wedding, or house. For you. Please save something for yourself. Travel. Take that art class. Live the life you put on hold. She will ask. She will expect. Don't give in. For once, choose yourself. I love you forever, David. I sat in that parking lot and cried until I couldn't breathe. 1 year later, Jessica got engaged. We're thinking June, she said, excited. Something elegant. Tyler's family knows everyone, so it needs to be perfect. That sounds wonderful. The good venues are expensive, $50,000, $60,000. I heard what she wasn't saying. How much do you need? If you could help with $55,000, that would cover everything. I know it's a lot, but Dad's life insurance, right? He'd want this for me. David's words echoed, she will ask, she will expect, but she was my daughter, her wedding. I'll write you a check. I used the money I'd been saving to open a small flower shop. That dream ended before it began. The wedding was beautiful, 200 guests at a country club. Jessica looked stunning. Tyler's parents held court like royalty. Tyler's mother made a point of asking me loudly what I did for a living. I'm recently retired. I taught elementary school. Oh, how sweet. The way she said it made sweet sound like an insult. Tyler's mother was on the board of the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. Do you know it? I do. Have you been? I haven't had the chance. She smiled without warmth. You should go sometime. Culture is so important. Jessica saw the exchange but said nothing. She was too busy posing with Tyler's family, fitting seamlessly into their world. She never thanked me for the $55,000. Not once. I drove home alone that night and found David's letter in my nightstand. I read it again this time, really hearing it. Save something for yourself. I hadn't understood David's warning then, but I was about to. 2 hours after Jessica's phone call, I got in my car. I was going to fix this. That's what I always did. Something went wrong, I fixed it. Made myself smaller, easier, less embarrassing. The drive to St. Paul took 30 minutes. I spent them rehearsing. I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. Maybe I could just come for a few hours. I promise I'll be quiet. Even in my head, I sounded desperate. Jessica and Tyler's house was in a neighborhood I couldn't afford. New construction, expensive landscaping. 3 cars in the driveway, none older than last year. This was the life my $55,000 had helped build. I'd stopped for flowers, cheap daisies and carnations, a peace offering. It was almost dark when I walked up their path. Through the windows, I could see their cream-colored furniture, abstract art. Everything looked like a magazine. I raised my hand to knock. I just don't understand why you can't tell her straight. Tyler's voice carried through the window. I froze. I did tell her. I said, don't come. Jessica's voice. You should have been clearer. Now she'll think she can change your mind. You know how she gets clingy and pathetic. My hand dropped. The flowers felt heavy. She'll get over it. She always does. Does she have to? Why do we keep her in our lives? She's embarrassing, Jessica. My parents took one look at her at our wedding and asked if she was the help. I should have left. I couldn't move. I know. Jessica's voice was quiet. But it's not forever. What does that mean? A pause. Then, the life insurance, Dad's retirement, the house. It's over $1 million, Tyler. We just have to wait. The flowers slipped in my grip. Wait for what? Tyler asked. How long can she realistically live? She's 61. Another 10 years, max. Then we're set. We can pay off the house, invest, maybe get the lake property. So you're waiting for her to pass away. Don't say it like that. Jessica's voice sharpened. I'm being practical. She's my mother. I can't just cut her off. But I can't have her around Tyler's family either. So I manage it. Keep her at a distance until she's gone and you get the inheritance. Yes, though simple. Final. And honestly, I can't wait. Can't wait to never have to see her again after we get that money. No more guilt trips. No more her looking at me with those sad eyes like I owe her something. I dropped the flowers. They landed on concrete petals, scattering. Neither heard. They were too busy planning their future with my money counting down the years until I no longer existed. I stood there, frozen. 33 years of David loving me. 61 years of trying to be good enough. And this is what it amounted to my daughter calculating how long until I was worth more gone than here. I picked up the flowers, not to take them, just to move them off the walkway where someone might trip. Then I walked back to my car, got in, put the key in the ignition. My hands weren't shaking. My eyes weren't wet. I felt strangely calm. I drove home through November darkness, past houses lit up with dinner preparations, past families visible through windows together and whole, past the exit to the nursing home where I used to visit Mrs. Patterson from my teaching days, the one whose children never came. I'd always felt sorry for her. Now I understood. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat in the car for a long time. The engine ticked as it cooled. Something inside me had gone very quiet. Not broken. I'd been broken before. This was different. This was done. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and gray. I woke to a silent phone knowing my daughter was waiting for me to pass away. 10 days had passed since I'd stood outside her window and heard the truth. 10 days of going through motions. I hadn't called Jessica. She hadn't called me. The silence felt less like abandonment now and more like clarity. I walked to my kitchen window. Outside, the Johnsons next door were unloading their car arms full of covered dishes. Grandchildren squealed in fallen leaves. Across the street, the Martins set up extra tables laughing. Thanksgiving, the day America celebrates family and belonging. I made coffee and sat at my table. On TV, the parade played giant balloons floating through New York crowds cheering. David and I used to watch together every year. He'd make terrible jokes about the floats. The coffee tasted like nothing. My phone sat dark on the counter. No Happy Thanksgiving, Mom. Nothing. Somewhere 30 minutes away, Jessica was setting her table for Tyler's important guests, grateful her embarrassing mother wasn't there. I thought about staying home. Ordering delivery, spending the day in pajamas, pretending this was choice? No, I would not let them make me invisible. If I was eating Thanksgiving dinner, I'd do it somewhere with people with life. Even alone, I wouldn't be hiding. I showered. Put on my nicest sweater, the blue one David said brought out my eyes. Did my makeup carefully. Grabbed my purse. As I locked my door, Mrs. Johnson waved. Happy Thanksgiving, Claire. You headed to Jessica's. Different plans this year. I called back, smiling. Lakeside Grill was one of those Minneapolis institutions that stayed open on holidays for people like me, people with nowhere else to go. When I pushed through the door, warmth hit me. The smell of roasted turkey and fresh bread, the soft clink of glasses, and everywhere families. The hostess looked up, took in my solo arrival, and her expression shifted to pity. Just one tonight, just one. 2 words that said everything about my life. Just one. She led me through the packed restaurant. Every table was full couples with elderly parents, groups of friends, large families, spilling across multiple tables pushed together. She seated me at a tiny table in the corner, squeezed between the kitchen door and a celebration that took up 3 tables. Your server will be right with you. I sat down, opened the menu, tried to look like this was fine. The family next to me was celebrating hard, an older couple at the head, probably late 60s, a middle-aged couple with 2 kids who kept interrupting each other laughing, a younger couple telling a story that had everyone in stitches. 3 generations. Easy. Natural. They passed dishes without asking, finished each other's sentences, the kind of family that exists in greeting cards, the kind I'd thought I had. The server arrived. The Thanksgiving special. Please. The turkey came looking perfect. Golden skin cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes with gravy. It looked like a magazine. I couldn't taste any of it. I sat there, fork in hand, pushing food around while the family next to me exploded in laughter. The little girl was telling a story with her mouth full, and instead of correcting her, they all leaned in closer to hear. This is what it was supposed to look like. This warmth, this easy joy, this certainty that you belonged. I thought about my daughter 30 minutes away serving turkey to people who mattered more than I did. I thought about David's letter, save something for yourself. I thought about Jessica's voice, can't wait to never have to see her again. I watched the family next to me pass plates and laugh together, and something inside me cracked wide open. The tears came before I could stop them. My turkey arrived looking perfect. I couldn't taste any of it. I sat staring at the plate golden skin cranberry sauce steam rising from potatoes. Everything arranged beautifully, like someone had tried to make loneliness look appetizing. The family next to me was still laughing. The grandmother telling a story, hands gesturing wildly. The little boy spilled his milk, and instead of anger, there was just gentle teasing. This is what I'd wanted, not the perfect turkey. The imperfect, messy, beautiful chaos of people who loved each other. The tears came harder. I pressed my napkin to my eyes, trying to disappear. Honey. A woman's voice, warm and concerned. I looked up. A woman in her late 60s stood beside my table. Silver hair in a soft bun, kind eyes, burgundy sweater and pearl earrings. The sort of face that looked like it had spent a lifetime listening. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. "I'm fine, just allergies." She raised one eyebrow. Allergies don't usually make people cry into their turkey on Thanksgiving. Despite everything, I almost laughed. "I didn't mean to disturb your dinner." "You're not disturbing anything. I'm Dorothy. Dorothy Henderson." "Claire Sullivan." "Well, Claire." Her voice was gentle but firm. "No one should eat alone on this day. Why don't you come join us?" I shook my head. "I couldn't. I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding, I'm inviting. There's a difference." "Really, I appreciate it." My husband tells terrible jokes. Our son starts political debates. "You'd be doing us a favor." From the big table, an older man, maybe 70, reading glasses pushed up on his head, waved. "She won't take no for an answer. 43 years of marriage. Never won an argument." Dorothy turned to him. "That's because I'm always right, Edward." Edward grinned at me. "See?" I looked between them, this couple who saw a crying stranger and didn't look away. "I don't want to impose." I tried once more. Dorothy touched my shoulder. "Sweetheart, you're not imposing. We just opened another bottle of wine and there's way too much pie, please." Her eyes held something. Not pity, recognition, understanding. "Okay," I heard myself say. "If you're sure, I'm sure." I stood and followed her to the table. The family looked up, curious but friendly. Edward pulled out the chair next to him. "Welcome to the chaos. I'm Edward. The turkey's dry, my jokes are worse, but the company's pretty good." "Edward, the turkey is not dry," Dorothy said. "The turkey is absolutely dry," said a man in his 40s. "But we love you anyway, Mom." Everyone laughed. Someone poured wine. A plate appeared. The little girl looked at me with wide eyes. "Are you Grandma's new friend?" "I suppose I am." "Cool. I'm Emily. I'm 8. Do you like mac and cheese?" "I do." "Good. Mom says the turkey's too dry." More laughter. Someone passed bread. Dorothy caught my eye and gave me a small nod. "You belong here." For the first time in 10 days, I felt something shift. Not healing, but hope. The tiniest spark. As I sat down surrounded by these strangers who'd made room for me, I had no idea I was walking toward my future. They made room like I'd always been there. Dorothy sat at the head of the table in her burgundy sweater, silver hair catching the warm restaurant light. Edward was across from her sleeves, rolled up a man who'd spent 43 years making her laugh. Their son, Andrew, 42, with his father's easy smile and his mother's warm eyes, sat beside his wife, Rebecca, who had the kind of face that made you feel like everything would be okay. And then there were the kids. Emily, 8 years old, bouncing in her seat with the kind of energy only children have after too much sugar and not enough sleep. Daniel, 6, quieter, watching me with big curious eyes as he built a tower out of mashed potatoes when he thought no one was looking. "So," Edward said, leaning back in his chair with a grin, "you know what the turkey said to the computer?" Emily groaned. "Grandpa, no." Google, Google, Google. The table erupted. Emily giggled so hard she nearly knocked over her water. Daniel's potato tower collapsed. Andrew shook his head, grinning. Rebecca covered her face with her napkin, laughing. And I laughed too. A real laugh, the first one in months. Dorothy poured me more wine. "Don't encourage him," she said, but her eyes were soft. "He's been telling that joke since 1987. "And it gets better every year," Edward said, winking at me. The food kept coming. Turkey stuffing cranberry sauce that wasn't from a can. Someone passed me green beans. Someone else refilled my plate before I even realized it was empty. I wasn't used to this, people noticing me, making sure I had enough. "So, Claire," Dorothy said gently, folding her hands on the table. Are you from Minneapolis originally? I hesitated the way you do when you're not sure how much to say. I've been here most of my life. I taught elementary school for 30 years. Retired a few years ago. A teacher, Rebecca said, her face lighting up. That's wonderful. What grade? 3rd. They're still small enough to think you're magic, but old enough to tie their own shoes. Andrew laughed. That's the sweet spot. Do you have family here? Dorothy asked, her voice careful. Not prying, just kind. I looked down at my plate. A daughter. She's busy. Dorothy didn't push. She just nodded like she understood all the things I wasn't saying. Well, she said, the family we choose is just as important as the one we're born into. Edward raised his glass to Thanksgiving and to new friends. I lifted my glass throat tight. To new friends. Dinner stretched on easy conversation, seconds, thirds. Emily told me about her upcoming dance recital. Daniel asked if I liked dinosaurs. I said yes. He gave me a detailed ranking of his top 5. Andrew talked about his job as an architect. Rebecca shared a story about their dog, a golden retriever named Biscuit, who'd eaten an entire pumpkin pie last year. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt this seen. When dessert was finally cleared, pumpkin pie, apple, crisp coffee. Dorothy reached into her purse and pulled out a small card. She slid it across the table to me. We do this every Sunday, she said. 5 o'clock, dinner at our place, nothing fancy, just us. I stared at the card, her address written in neat handwriting. An invitation. You don't have to, Dorothy said, but we'd love to have you. Edward leaned forward. Fair warning, Daniel will want to show you his dinosaur collection. It takes about an hour. 2 hours, Daniel corrected. I looked at them, this family of strangers who'd made room for me at their table, who'd made me laugh, who'd asked about my life like it mattered. I folded the card carefully and slipped it into my pocket. 5 o'clock, I said. I'll be there. Dorothy smiled, not with pity, with warmth. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was walking towards something instead of away from it. I stood on the Hendersons' front porch 5 minutes before I knocked. It was early December, a month since Thanksgiving. The house was a Victorian painted soft blue with white trim, the kind of place that looked like it belonged in a Christmas card. Light poured through the windows. I could hear laughter inside. I almost turned around, but then the door opened and Dorothy stood there in a flour-dusted apron, smiling like she'd been waiting for me all day. Claire, she said warmly, you're right on time. I hadn't knocked yet. She'd just known. Inside the house smelled like roasted chicken and fresh bread. The dining room was filled with the same warmth I'd felt at Lakeside Grill, voices, overlapping plates clinking, the kind of noise that meant people were comfortable with each other. Edward waved me over. Claire, perfect timing. I need a chess partner. I don't really play. Even better, he said, grinning. I hate losing. He beat me in 12 moves. Emily showed me her science project, a papier-mâché volcano she'd painted purple, because as she explained very seriously, regular volcanoes are boring. Daniel dragged me into the living room to show me his dinosaur collection, which now included a T-Rex that roared when you pressed a button. He pressed it 17 times. After dinner, I helped Rebecca clear the table. She didn't ask, I just started stacking plates, and she handed me a dish towel like it was the most natural thing in the world. You don't have to, she said. I know, I said, but I want to. Dorothy appeared beside us, drying a casserole dish. Claire, she said quietly, you're welcome here anytime. You know that, right? I nodded, throat tight. Thank you. She squeezed my shoulder. I mean it. The Sundays kept coming. By January, I'd stopped hesitating at the door. By February, Emily was asking if I could help with her math homework. By March, Daniel started calling me Miss Claire and then eventually just Claire. In April, when spring finally broke through the Minnesota cold, Andrew handed me a plate at the table and said, "Here you go, family." So casually, I almost didn't notice. But I did notice. Edward taught me chess properly. I still lost, but now it took 20 moves instead of 12. Dorothy and I started cooking together on Sunday mornings. She'd call me at 9 and say, "I'm making pot roast, get over here." Rebecca loaned me books. Emily drew me pictures that I hung on my refrigerator next to the ones Jessica had made 20 years ago. And Daniel, sweet, quiet Daniel, started saving me a seat at the table without being asked. I stopped bringing wine every week. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. I stopped wondering if I was overstaying my welcome. Because somewhere between December and spring, between chess games and dish towels and purple volcanoes, I'd become part of something. One Sunday in May after dinner, Andrew walked me to my car. The evening air was soft lilacs blooming along the driveway. "You know," he said, leaning against my car, "Mom talks about you all the time." "Does she?" "Yeah. She says you remind her of herself strong even when you don't feel like it." He smiled. "She's really glad you're here, Claire. We all are." I looked back at the house, the blue Victorian with light spilling from every window, the sound of Emily's laughter floating through the screen door, Edward calling for Rebecca to settle an argument about whether dinosaurs could swim. For the first time in 61 years, I felt like I belonged somewhere without having to earn it. "I'm glad I'm here too," I said, and I meant it. 1 year after that first Thanksgiving, Dorothy and I sat on the back porch drinking tea. It was November again. The air had that sharp Minnesota cold, the kind that warned winter was coming. Dorothy wrapped her hands around her mug, her silver hair catching the afternoon light. "I never told you why I invited you that day," she said quietly. I looked at her. "You said you saw me crying." "I did." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "But it wasn't just that. When I saw you sitting there alone, trying so hard to hold it together," she smiled sadly. "I saw myself." I set my tea down. "What do you mean?" Dorothy took a breath. "Edward and I had a daughter. Her name was Caroline." Had. Past tense. "She's not dead," Dorothy added quickly, seeing my face. "But she's been gone 15 years. We haven't spoken since." The weight of that silence sat between us. "What happened?" I asked softly. "She met someone," Dorothy said. "A man from a wealthy family, old money country, clubs the whole 9 yards. We were so happy for her at first. But she shook her head. "He looked at Edward and me like we were something he'd stepped in. We weren't good enough. Edward's a retired postal worker. I was a school secretary. We didn't have the right pedigree." My chest tightened. I knew exactly what that felt like. "Caroline started pulling away," Dorothy continued. "Missed holidays, made excuses. And then one day she called and said she needed space. She said being around us made things difficult with his family. She wanted to fit in. She wanted an upgraded family." Dorothy's voice cracked on those last 2 words. "So she chose them. And she left us." Dorothy. 15 years, Claire. 15 years and not a single call. Not a birthday card. Nothing. I reached across the table and took her hand. "That's why I saw you," Dorothy said, tears in her eyes now. "That's why I couldn't walk past. When I saw you crying into that turkey, I saw the woman I used to be, the one who kept asking what I did wrong, why I wasn't enough." She squeezed my hand. "I couldn't let you sit there alone. Not when I knew exactly how that felt." We sat in silence for a moment, the wind moving through the bare trees. "You gave me something that day," I said, my voice shaking. "You gave me a place to belong when I thought I'd lost everything." "And you gave me something too," Dorothy said. "You reminded me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who makes room at the table when you're falling apart." She smiled through her tears. "You showed up, Claire, every Sunday. You didn't have to, but you did." I wiped my eyes. I didn't know where else to go. "Well," Dorothy said, her voice steadying, "you're exactly where you're supposed to be." We finished our tea as the sun dipped lower the sky, turning pink and gold. For the first time, I understood something I'd been too hurt to see before. I hadn't lost a family. I'd escaped one. Jessica didn't want a mother. She wanted an inheritance. Tyler didn't want a mother-in-law. He wanted someone he could control or erase. But here on this porch with this woman who'd also been discarded by her own daughter here, I'd found something real. Dorothy stood brushing leaves off her sweater. "Come on," she said. "Edward's making his famous chili. You're staying for dinner." I smiled. "I always do." "Good," she said, "because that's what family does." And for the first time in 62 years, I believed it. In the 2 years that followed, I did something I'd never done. I lived for myself. I sold David's house. The big colonial in the suburbs where we'd raised Jessica, where I'd scrubbed floors and made dinners and waited for a daughter who stopped coming home. It sold for $350,000. I didn't ask Jessica if she minded. I didn't owe her an explanation. I bought a small condo downtown, 2 bedrooms, big windows, a view of the river. For the first time in my life, I decorated the way I wanted. Soft blues, white curtains, plants everywhere. And then I traveled. I'd never been west of Iowa, so I drove to Yellowstone in June, watched Old Faithful erupt under a sky so wide it hurt. I hiked in Montana, stayed in a cabin in Colorado where the stars were so thick you could reach up and touch them. I ate alone in diners, read books in coffee shops, woke up when I wanted to. I felt young again. Not 62, not discarded, just alive. Back home, I started volunteering at the library 3 days a week. I joined a watercolor painting class on Thursdays. I was terrible at it, but I loved it. I made friends. Real friends. Women my age who'd also been through things, who laughed easily and didn't ask too many questions. Sunday dinners with the Hendersons continued. Sometimes at their house, sometimes at mine. Dorothy taught me how to make her pot roast. Edward and I finished an entire 1,000-piece puzzle of the Grand Canyon. Emily showed me TikTok dances. Daniel, now 9, started bringing me rocks he found because he knew I liked the smooth ones. Somewhere along the way, they stopped calling me Miss Claire. They started calling me Aunt Claire. Not because anyone told them to, just because that's what I was. We celebrated 2 more Thanksgivings together. The second one, Rebecca made me promise I'd never miss another. The third one, Andrew toasted me and said, "To family the one we choose." I looked 10 years younger. People told me all the time. My hair was still silver, but I wore it down now instead of pulled back tight. I smiled more, laughed louder, took up space. And Jessica, I blocked her number 2 years ago. She'd called 3 times after that Thanksgiving, once in December, twice in the spring. I never answered. I knew what she wanted. She wanted to know if I was okay, if I was alone, if I still had the money. I didn't owe her those answers anymore. So I blocked her, deleted her emails, let her wonder. For 3 years, I lived in peace. I woke up every morning in my bright condo with the river view. I painted terrible watercolors. I volunteered with kids who reminded me why I loved teaching. I had Sunday dinners where people asked how I was and actually cared about the answer. I thought this was my ending, a quiet, happy one, a life I'd chosen instead of one I'd settled for. But Jessica was still out there, and she was watching. I didn't know it at the time, but she'd been keeping tabs, asking mutual acquaintances how I was doing, scrolling through public photos Dorothy posted on Facebook. She saw me at Yellowstone. She saw me laughing at Thanksgiving. She saw me surrounded by the Hendersons, looking healthier and happier than I had in years. And she didn't like what she saw, because happy people don't leave inheritances to daughters who abandon them. Happy people change their wills. So 3 weeks before my 65th birthday, Jessica made her move. Jessica hadn't thought about me in 3 years, until she opened Facebook. I didn't know this at the time, of course, but I pieced it together later from things she said, things Tyler let slip. And honestly, it wasn't hard to figure out. Greed has a way of making people predictable. It was 2 weeks before my 65th birthday. Jessica was scrolling through her feed, probably looking at vacation rentals or designer handbags, or whatever it is people like her look at when Dorothy's post popped up. A photo from our 3rd Thanksgiving together. Me laughing, holding Daniel on my lap while Emily tried to balance a fork on her nose. Edward in the background carving the turkey. Rebecca pouring wine. Andrew grinning at the camera. The caption read, "So grateful for our beautiful, growing family. Happy Thanksgiving." Jessica stopped scrolling. She zoomed in on the photo. On me. On the way, I looked lighter, happier, younger. My hair down. My smile real. She scrolled through Dorothy's page. More photos. Me at Yellowstone in front of Old Faithful. Me at the Hendersons' house painting Easter eggs with the kids. Me and Dorothy laughing over coffee. And the comments. Oh, the comments. Such a beautiful family. You all look so happy. What a blessing to have each other. Jessica's stomach dropped. She called Tyler. We have a problem, she said. Tyler came home early from work. Jessica showed him the photos, her hands shaking. Look at her, Jessica said. She's replaced us. Tyler studied the screen, his jaw tight. Who are these people? I don't know. Some family she met. She looks happy. Jessica's voice cracked on that last word. Not because she was sad, because she was terrified. How long has this been going on? Tyler asked. I don't know. 3 years. Maybe longer. She blocked my number. Remember, I haven't talked to her since that Thanksgiving. Tyler leaned back thinking. How much is her inheritance again? Over $1 million, Jessica said quietly. Life insurance, retirement, the house. Dad left her everything. That's our money, Tyler said flatly. That's our retirement. Lily's college fund. The lake house we've been planning. Jessica stared at the photos. What if she leaves it to them? Tyler's face went cold. She won't. How do you know? Because, Tyler said slowly, we're going to remind her who her real family is. Jessica looked at him. How? Her 65th birthday is in 2 weeks, right? Yeah, so we show up. We bring Lily. We act like nothing happened. We're the concerned daughter and son-in-law who've been worried sick about her. Tyler scrolled through Dorothy's page again. If this woman is posting public photos, then there's probably going to be some kind of party. We find out where, we show up, and we make it very clear that we're her family, not these random people. Jessica bit her lip. What if she doesn't want to see us? She doesn't have a choice, Tyler said. We're her daughter, her granddaughter, her blood. That means something. And if she's planning to cut us out of her will, we need to stop it before it's too late. Jessica nodded slowly. Okay, we'll go. Tyler stood straightening his tie. And Jessica, when we get there, you need to play the part. Cry if you have to. Say you've missed her. Say Lily's been asking about her grandmother. How about, but Lily doesn't even remember? Doesn't matter, Tyler interrupted. This is about money. Over $1 million. So we do whatever it takes to get back in her good graces before she signs anything away. Jessica looked at the photo again. Me surrounded by people who loved me. People who weren't her. Fine, she said. We'll crash the party. They had no idea I'd made my choice 3 years ago. They were about to find out. 2 weeks before my 65th birthday, fate intervened at the produce section. Jessica was at Whole Foods squeezing avocados when she heard a familiar voice. Jessica Reynolds. She turned. Margaret Faulkner, one of my former teaching colleagues, a woman who'd always sent me Christmas cards and asked how I was doing. Oh, hi, Margaret, Jessica said, forcing a smile. Margaret beamed. I haven't seen you in years. How are you? How's your mom? Jessica hesitated. She's fine, I think. You think? Margaret laughed. Well, I know she's fine. I just ran into Dorothy Henderson last week. She told me all about the big party they're throwing for Claire's 65th birthday. It sounds absolutely lovely. Lake Minnetonka, right? That's such a beautiful venue. Jessica's smile froze. Party. Oh, you must be so excited, Margaret continued, oblivious. Dorothy said it's going to be quite the celebration. The whole Henderson family, friends from the library, even some of Claire's old students. She so loved your mom. Jessica nodded stiffly. Yes, she is. Margaret squeezed her arm. Well, I'll see you there. I'm so glad Claire has people like the Hendersons in her life. And you, of course. Family is everything. Jessica watched her walk away, her jaw tight. She called Tyler from the parking lot. I know where the party is, she said. Tyler's plan solidified over the next 2 weeks. We show up with Lily, he said. You look hurt, devastated. You say you found out about the party by accident and you're heartbroken you weren't invited. Make her look like the villain in front of all these people who think she's so wonderful. Jessica nodded. What if she tells us to leave? She won't, Tyler said confidently. Not in front of a crowd. She'll be too embarrassed. And once we're in, we play nice. We rebuild the relationship, and we make damn sure she doesn't change her will. Jessica looked at Lily coloring at the kitchen table, oblivious. Okay, we'll do it. Meanwhile, Dorothy and I were in her kitchen baking. I rolled out dough for a pie while Dorothy whipped cream. The house smelled like cinnamon and butter. Sunlight poured through the windows. You know, Dorothy said carefully, it's not too late. If you want to invite Jessica— I don't, I said firmly. Dorothy glanced at me. I just want to make sure you're at peace with it. I am. I pressed the dough into the pan. This day is for the people who chose to be here, the people who showed up when I needed them. Jessica made her choice 3 years ago. I'm making mine now. Dorothy smiled. Then let's make this the best damn birthday party Lake Minnetonka has ever seen. The day arrived. The venue was perfect, a beautiful lakeside pavilion with string lights and white tablecloths. The water sparkled under the November sun. Friends, neighbors, the Hendersons, my library kids, Margaret Faulkner, even my old principal, they were all there. Emily and Daniel ran around with the other kids. Edward manned the grill. Rebecca set out platters of food. Andrew poured drinks. Dorothy stood beside me, radiant in a lavender dress. There were toasts, laughter, hugs, a cake with 65 candles that took 3 people to light. And then, as the sun began to dip toward the horizon, I stood up. The crowd quieted. I just want to say a few words. I began, my voice steady. 5 years ago, I thought I'd lost everything, but what I actually lost was the weight of people who didn't value me. People smiled, nodded, and what I gained— I continued looking at Dorothy, at Edward, at the kids— was a family I chose. A family that chose me back. I raised my glass. So thank you. Thank you for showing me what love actually looks like. The crowd lifted their glasses, and that's when I saw her, Jessica, Tyler, and Lily, standing at the entrance, watching. The venue overlooked Lake Minnetonka, autumn leaves reflecting on the water, 40 guests filling the room with warmth. I stood at the center of it all, surrounded by people who loved me not because they had to, but because they wanted to. I raised my glass. 4 years ago. I began, my voice steady. I sat alone in a restaurant on Thanksgiving, crying into a plate of turkey I couldn't taste. The room was silent, listening. I thought I'd lost everything. My daughter had just told me not to come home, that I was an embarrassment, that I didn't fit into her new life. I paused, looking around, and I believed her. I thought something was wrong with me, that I wasn't enough. Dorothy's eyes glistened. Edward reached for her hand. But then— I continued, smiling now. A woman I'd never met saw me crying and refused to let me sit alone. Dorothy Henderson invited me to her table. She and Edward made room for me. They didn't know me. They didn't owe me anything. But they showed up anyway. Dorothy pressed a hand to her chest, tears spilling over. And over the years, they kept showing up. Andrew and Rebecca welcomed me into their home. Emily and Daniel started calling me Aunt Claire, not because anyone told them to, but because that's what I became. My voice cracked. You gave me something I thought I'd lost. You gave me a family. The room was quiet, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that holds space for something sacred. So today, on my 65th birthday, I want to say thank you. I looked at Dorothy, at Edward, at the kids, at all the faces smiling back at me. Thank you for showing me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who makes room at the table when you're falling apart. I raised my glass higher. You are my family, my real family, the family I chose, and the family that chose me back. The room erupted in applause. Margaret Faulkner was wiping her eyes. My old principal was nodding, smiling. The library kids clapped and cheered. Dorothy crossed the room and pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, I whispered back. And then the door opened. The applause faltered. Heads turned. Jessica stood in the doorway, Tyler beside her, Lily clutching his hand. They were dressed like they were attending a gala. Jessica in a sleek black dress, Tyler in a tailored suit. Tyler held a large, beautifully wrapped gift box. The room went dead silent. Jessica smiled bright wide and completely fake. "Mom!" she called out, her voice ringing across the pavilion. "Happy birthday, Mom." She started walking toward me, arms opening like she expected a hug, like we hadn't gone 4 years without speaking, like she hadn't told me I was an embarrassment, like I hadn't heard her say she was waiting for me to die. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It never did. 40 people watched in frozen silence. Some of them knew. Margaret had probably pieced it together. Dorothy definitely knew. But most of them just stared confused as this beautifully dressed woman swept into the room like she belonged there. Tyler followed close behind, his face smooth and unreadable. Lily looked small and uncertain, her eyes darting around the unfamiliar crowd. Jessica stopped a few feet away from me, still smiling, still holding her arms out. "I'm so sorry we're late," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. Traffic was terrible, but we wouldn't miss this for the world. The whole room held its breath. I didn't move. I just looked at her, this stranger wearing my daughter's face, and felt absolutely nothing. Not anger, not hurt, not even surprise, just a calm, cold certainty. This was the moment I'd been preparing for. I didn't step forward to hug her. I stayed exactly where I was. Jessica's arms faltered. "Mom," she said softly, "I've missed you so much." She held out a gift box wrapped in silver paper. Tyler stood behind her, his face smooth and pleasant. "We want to make things right," Jessica said. The room was silent, 40 people watching. "Taking advantage," I said quietly. Jessica blinked. "What? You said you were worried these people were taking advantage of me." I looked at Tyler. "Is that what you think?" Tyler's jaw tightened. "We're just concerned, Claire. You're vulnerable. Like waiting for me to die so you can collect $1 million, I said. Jessica's face went white. "I heard you," I continued. 4 years ago, November 15th, I stood outside your window and heard you. I quoted, 'How long can she realistically live? She's 61. Another 10 years, max. Then we're set. We can pay off the house, invest, maybe get the lake property.'" Tyler's face flushed red. "You laughed," I said to Jessica. "You said you couldn't wait to never see me again once you got the money." Guests whispered, shocked. Jessica's panic hardened into something uglier. "You embarrassed us," she snapped. "You're a retired teacher, Mom. You don't understand real money, real success. You made us look bad." "These strangers," Tyler added, his voice loud. "We are your family." I didn't flinch. "Let me tell you about family, Jessica." I stepped forward. "I gave you $120,000 for college. I worked 3 jobs so you could graduate without debt." Jessica's face twisted. "I gave you $55,000 for your wedding. I used my flower shop savings, my dream, so you could have the perfect day. I gave you $50,000 for a down payment on your house. That's $270,000, Jessica." The room was dead silent. "And when your father was dying, you visited him twice in 6 months. Twice. He asked about you every day." Jessica's mask cracked. "That money is mine," she shouted. "Dad left it for me." There it was, the truth. Phones came out. At least 3 people were recording now. Tyler stepped forward. "You can't cut her out. Everything you have should be mine." Jessica's voice was shrill. "These people have no right to it. I am your family." More phones lifted. Margaret was recording. This wasn't just witnesses anymore. This was going viral. "You're right," I said calmly. "You are my daughter. But you stopped being my family the day you told me not to come home. The day you decided I was an embarrassment. The day you started waiting for me to die." Jessica's face crumpled with rage. "You can't do this. That money is mine." Tyler grabbed her arm, but she yanked free. "You owe me," Jessica screamed. After everything I put up with your boring job, your boring life, your boring friends, you owe me. And that's when Dorothy stepped beside me. Then Edward, then Andrew, Rebecca, Emily, and Daniel. They formed a wall, a family. Andrew pulled out his phone, his voice calm but firm. "Should I call security, Mom?" The word hung in the air. "Mom." Jessica's eyes went wide with panic. "You can't replace me," she whispered. "I didn't replace you," I said quietly. "You left. They stayed." Andrew held up his phone, waiting for my answer. Andrew's finger hovered over the call button. His eyes met mine. "Mom," he said, "should I? If you're holding your breath right now like I was drop a comment, I need to know you're feeling this too. Fair warning, what happens in the next 60 seconds changed everything. Some details ahead are dramatized for impact, but the choice I made, that was real. If you want to stop here, I understand. But if you need to know what I said to Andrew, stay with me." Dorothy looked at me asking permission with her eyes. I nodded. She turned to Jessica and Tyler. "You need to leave." Andrew raised his phone. "Security's on their way." Jessica's face crumpled with desperation. "Mom, please, I'm your daughter." "Stop," I said. She froze. "You were my daughter," I said quietly. "But you gave that up when you decided I was worth more dead than alive. I spent 61 years trying to earn your love, working 3 jobs, giving you everything, hoping you'd choose me." My voice was steady, clear. "That's over. I'm done waiting. I'm done trying to be enough for someone who sees me as a bank account." I gestured to the Hendersons. "I choose them. The people who showed up, who stayed, who loved me when I had nothing to offer but myself." I met Jessica's eyes one last time. "Goodbye, Jessica. You got exactly what you chose." 2 security guards walked through the door. Tyler exploded. "This is insane. You'll regret this. We'll sue for the inheritance." "Sir, you need to leave now," the guard said firmly. Jessica lunged toward me, but the guard stepped between us. "That's my money," she screamed. "You can't give it to strangers." "Ma'am, please come with us." Tyler grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the exit. "We'll contest the will. We'll take you to court." Jessica was still screaming as they escorted her out. "You owe me. That money is mine." The door closed. Silence. And then someone started clapping. Margaret, my old colleague. She was crying, but she was clapping. Others joined. And then the entire room erupted in applause, the kind that shakes the walls, that says, "We're on your side." People surrounded me. My principal hugged me. The library kids high-fived. Neighbors squeezed my hand. "Good for you." Dorothy pulled me into her arms and I cried. "You did it, sweetheart," she whispered. Edward wrapped his arms around both of us. "So damn proud of you." Andrew grinned. "That's my mom." Rebecca laughed through tears. "Best birthday party ever." Then a small hand tugged my dress. Emily looked up at me seriously. "Aunt Claire, can we have cake now?" The whole room burst into laughter, real, joyful, relieved laughter. "Yes, sweetheart," I said. "We can have cake." The party resumed warmer than before. Edward fired up the grill. Rebecca cut the cake. The kids ran around with frosting on their faces. Someone turned on music. Dorothy stayed close, her hand never far from mine. As the sun dipped over Lake Minnetonka, turning the water gold, I stood surrounded by people who loved me, not for what I could give them, but for who I was. I cut the birthday cake. 65 candles melted, but still there. Dorothy handed me the knife. "Make a wish." I looked around at the faces smiling back at me, at the family I'd chosen, the family that had chosen me. I didn't need to wish for anything. I'd spent 65 years waiting for my daughter to choose me, and when I let her go, I finally chose myself. They say when you stand up for yourself, you'll lose some people. They're right. But what they don't tell you is that you'll also find yourself. A week after my 65th birthday, I met with my lawyer. I updated my will. The Henderson family, Dorothy, Edward, Andrew, Rebecca, Emily, and Daniel became my beneficiaries. Everything. The house money, the retirement funds, the life insurance, all of it. Jessica got $1, not to be cruel, but to make it clear this wasn't an oversight. This was a choice. She tried to reach me. Dozens of calls, emails, letters. I blocked every number, returned every letter unopened. I was done. The months passed. I traveled. I volunteered. I lived. 4 years after that first Thanksgiving at Lakeside Grill, I hosted Thanksgiving at my condo. Dorothy and Edward arrived first arms full of dishes. Andrew and Rebecca brought wine. Emily, 12, now tall and confident, helped me mash the potatoes. Daniel, 10 years old and still obsessed with dinosaurs, set the table with the kind of focus only a kid could have. The table was set for 8, not 40, just us. I stood at the head of the table, glass in hand, and looked at the faces smiling back at me. 4 years ago. I sat alone in a restaurant crying into a plate of turkey, convinced I deserved to be forgotten. Dorothy's eyes glistened. I thought family meant blood, obligation, people you were supposed to love no matter what they did to you. I paused. I was wrong. Edward reached for Dorothy's hand. Family. I said, is the people who see you crying and pull up a chair, who show up every Sunday not because they have to, but because they want to, who make room at the table when you have nowhere else to go. I looked at Dorothy and Edward. You invited a crying stranger into your lives. You showed me I deserved to be chosen. You gave me a family I didn't know I could have. My voice cracked, but I kept going. So here's to the family we don't inherit, the family we build, the family we choose. Glasses clinked. Dorothy wiped her eyes. Love you, Claire, she whispered. Love you too, I said. Later, Dorothy and I sat on the balcony, tea in hand, watching the city lights flicker in the cold November air. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. Cutting Jessica off. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I'm sad it had to happen, I said. But I chose myself, and Jessica chose money over her mother. I'm done being someone's second choice. Dorothy nodded. You did the right thing. I know, I said, and I meant it. If you're listening to this, if you've ever been the scapegoat, the one who gave everything and got nothing back, I want you to know something. It's not your fault. If someone told you you're too sensitive, too dramatic, too much, that's not about you. That's about them. You deserve to be chosen first, fully, unconditionally. Family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you even when you have nothing to offer but yourself. I was 61 years old when I learned that. It's never too late. Walking away doesn't make you cruel. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. Choosing yourself doesn't make you a bad person. It sets you free. I spent 65 years waiting for my daughter to choose me. And when I finally let her go, I chose myself. I found my people, the ones who see me, who love me, who make room at the table without asking for anything in return. I hope you find your people too. I hope you know you deserve them, because you do. My name is Claire Sullivan. I'm 65 years old, and for the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I belong. Looking back at my journey, I realize I'm now part of those family drama stories I used to hear and think, that could never be me. But it was me. For 61 years, I believed love meant sacrifice without boundaries, giving, without receiving and waiting for someone to finally choose me. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're 65 to realize your worth. Like so many grandma stories, you've probably heard mine is about learning the hardest lesson too late, or maybe right on time. God gave me signs along the way. David's final letter telling me to save something for myself. That lonely Thanksgiving when I sat crying in a restaurant. The moment I overheard my daughter calculating how many years I had left to live. God was trying to wake me up, but I kept hitting snooze because I thought being a good mother meant accepting whatever scraps of love I was given. Here's what these family drama stories taught me. When someone shows you they value your bank account more than your heartbeat, believe them the first time. When someone tells you you're an embarrassment, don't apologize, walk away. And when God sends you a stranger who pulls up a chair and says, you belong here, that's not coincidence. That's grace. I've read countless grandma stories that end in regret, bitterness, or lonely hospital rooms where the money-hungry children finally show up to sign papers. Mine could have ended that way. Instead, it ended with me choosing myself surrounded by a family I built rather than one I was born into. What all these family drama stories and grandma stories have in common is one truth. Blood doesn't make you family. Showing up does. Loving without a price tag does. If you're in a situation like mine, if someone in your life treats you like an ATM with a heartbeat, please don't wait decades to set boundaries. You deserve to be chosen, first loved fully and valued for who you are, not what you can provide. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If my story touched you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your own experiences in the comments. You're not alone, and your story matters too. Final note, this content contains dramatized storytelling elements for educational purposes. Some details are fictionalized, but the core lessons about recognizing financial and emotional abuse are real. If this style isn't for you, that's okay. Please seek content better suited to your needs.